What if the fate of an entire continent hinged on the next 48 hours in a single battered industrial city? Imagine a place where every shell that lands, every drone that buzzes overhead, and every desperate radio transmission could decide not just the future of a war, but redraw the map of Europe itself. Tonight, Pokrovsk is that crucible, a flashpoint where history is being forged in real time, and where the stakes are measured in the lives of tens of thousands and the stability of nations far beyond its besieged limits. As dusk falls, Pokrovsk shudders under an unbroken barrage of artillery. Each explosion rattles windows already cracked from yesterday's bombardment, sending families scrambling deeper into their makeshift shelters. Swarms of drones stalk the city's sky, their whine as constant as the heartbeat of fear. A thick, suffocating fog rolls down the avenues, cloaking every alleyway, side street, and courtyard in a haze where friend and foe alike vanish into ghostly silhouettes. For the defenders, every corner now hides the threat of ambush. For civilians, every errand is a game of chance played against shrapnel and sniper fire. Lifelines into and out of Pokrovsk, once bustling with traffic and hope, are now kill zones. Convoys carrying food, ammunition, and medical teams are targeted relentlessly. Ukrainian supply trucks swerve and race through narrow corridors, their survival measured not in kilometers, but in meters and in seconds. Each lost vehicle is not just a tactical defeat, but a new wound in the city's effort to hang on. Makeshift medical stations, some little more than basements with a Red Cross taped to the door, are overwhelmed. Their doctors work round the clock, rationing the last of the morphine, improvising splints from scavenged wood, and praying for a lull that never comes. The strain on Pokrovsk mounts with every passing minute. Exhausted soldiers stagger through rubble-choked streets, their uniforms torn and faces hollow with fatigue. The defenders' radio traffic grows more frantic as ammunition runs low. In one intercepted call, a commander pleads for shells. "Just 10 more boxes. If we have to wait until morning, we won't have a position left." Independent reports, drawn from satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and interviews with both Ukrainian and Russian sources, converge on a chilling truth. Pokrovsk's defenses are dangerously close to breaking. Satellite images show the Russian encirclement tightening, with armored columns and infantry units digging in on every approach. The city's last open road, a muddy track running through battered farmland, is now under direct artillery fire. Each explosion, each destroyed supply truck, is a coin tossed into the scales, threatening to tip the city from tenuous survival to total collapse. But what hangs in the balance is far greater than the fate of a single city. Should Pokrovsk fall, military analysts warn, the entire Eastern Front could unravel overnight. New corridors would open, enabling Russian troops to surge deeper into the Ukrainian heartland. The domino effect could be swift and catastrophic, frontline positions collapsing like a line of dominoes, each one falling faster than the last. This is not mere speculation. In history, cities like Pokrovsk have often been the fulcrum upon which wars have turned. Consider the siege of Stalingrad during the Second World War, where control of a single industrial hub changed the course of the Eastern Front, and arguably the whole war. In that bitter winter, German and Soviet forces fought street by street, basement by basement, with the fate of millions hanging on the outcome. Pokrovsk is no less pivotal today. Its loss would not just be a tactical setback for Ukraine, but a strategic defeat with far-reaching consequences for the security architecture of Europe itself. The fallout from such a collapse would be immense. A Russian breakthrough at Pokrovsk could trigger new offensives, forcing Ukrainian troops to retreat from other key positions in the Donetsk region. It could open a path toward the city of Dnipro, a major logistical and industrial center, and, in the darkest scenarios, threaten the approaches to Kiev itself. Every kilometer gained by Russian forces would come at a heavy price, but the psychological impact of a major Ukrainian city falling into enemy hands could undermine morale across the entire country and shake the confidence of its international allies. Yet the consequences would not stop at Ukraine's borders. The shockwaves would ripple outward, disrupting global energy markets. After all, many of the pipelines that feed Europe's factories and heat its homes run dangerously close to the combat zone. A sudden escalation here could send energy prices soaring, straining economies from Paris to Beijing. At the same time, the threat of a broader war could spark new waves of refugees, sending families fleeing westward in search of safety and putting immense pressure on neighboring countries already stretched by previous crises. Some may be tempted to dismiss Pokrovsk's plight as just another grim chapter in a long and grinding conflict. But to ignore the real gravity of this moment is to risk unleashing a cascade of economic, humanitarian, and security crises across the continent. Every convoy that makes it through, every defensive position that holds, every heartbeat inside Pokrovsk right now, could be the difference between a contained conflict and a global catastrophe. But how did Pokrovsk, once little more than a logistical waypoint, become the center of the world's attention? To understand why so much now rides on this battered city, we must trace the arc of the siege from its first ominous signs to tonight's desperate struggle. For years, Pokrovsk served as the quiet engine behind Ukraine's eastern defenses. Its network of roads and rail lines kept vital supplies flowing to embattled front lines, ferried reinforcements to where they were needed most, and enabled the swift evacuation of the wounded. In many ways, Pokrovsk was the beating heart of Ukraine's military machine in Donetsk, a place of importance, but distant enough from the front lines to feel secure. That sense of security evaporated in recent days. Russian forces, advancing methodically, crept ever closer to the city's outskirts. What started as sporadic shelling escalated into a relentless assault. The main highways were first to fall, pounded by artillery, cratered by missiles, and watched night and day by circling drones. What was once a bustling artery is now a gauntlet of wrecked vehicles and shattered hopes. Each attempt to resupply the defenders or evacuate the wounded has become a desperate gamble. Ambulances and supply trucks must weave through narrow, constantly shifting corridors. Drivers speak of navigating by instinct, learning to recognize the telltale thud of incoming fire and the sudden silence that means a drone is overhead. Survival is measured not in hours, but in the seconds it takes to dash from one patch of cover to the next. Field hospitals, established in school basements and abandoned factories, are pushed beyond their limits. Medical teams improvise with what little they have, turning curtains into bandages, scavenging fuel for generators, and making impossible triage decisions. Even the most seasoned combat medics describe the situation as the worst they have ever faced. Around Pokrovsk, the tactics have grown harsher and more sophisticated. Drones, once used primarily for reconnaissance, now drop grenades and target vehicles with pinpoint accuracy. Artillery pounds every suspected supply route, and electronic warfare teams jam communications, blinding Ukrainian defenders. The literal fog that envelops the city each morning and night is both a blessing and a curse. It hides movements from enemy eyes, but also makes navigation and coordination nearly impossible. Inside the city, the fog of war is matched by a fog of misinformation. Russian sources claim that hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers, along with foreign advisors, are trapped in the city's ruins. Kiev, for its part, insists that evacuation corridors remain open and that control is being maintained, even as evidence grows that the situation is slipping. What is certain is that civilians, tens of thousands of them, are sheltering alongside exhausted soldiers, their fates now intertwined. To dismiss Pokrovsk's crisis is to ignore not only the immense human cost, but the city's crucial role in the wider conflict. Should Pokrovsk fall, Ukraine's entire logistical network in the east could collapse. Imagine a domino line stretching from the city to the farthest trenches on the front. Once one falls, the rest could go in rapid succession. Russian troops would gain new operational axes, potentially threatening cities that have remained safe until now. Understanding why every minute counts in Pokrovsk means looking beyond the immediate battle to the hidden levers of modern warfare. In this siege, time has become the most precious currency. Each hour the defenders hold out buys time for reinforcements to arrive, for new defensive lines to be built, for international aid to reach the city. But with every hour that passes, the strain grows. Ammunition runs lower, fuel dwindles, and hope fades. Historical parallels abound. Consider the siege of Sarajevo in the 1990s, a city encircled for almost 4 years, where every day was a fight for survival and every humanitarian convoy saved lives. There, as in Pokrovsk, the world watched in horror as civilians suffered, and the city's resistance became a symbol of national endurance. Or look to the siege of Leningrad in the Second World War, a city cut off for almost 900 days, where supply runs across frozen lakes were the only thing keeping starvation at bay. In both cases, the outcome was determined not just by armies, but by the ability to keep lifelines open under impossible pressure. Today, Pokrovsk faces its own test of endurance. The shelling is relentless. The city's power grid flickers on and off, plunging neighborhoods into darkness just as a new barrage begins. Warehouses that once held months of supplies now smolder, their contents destroyed by fire or looted in the chaos. Water pumps fail, and residents queue at ruined fountains, hoping for a few liters to last the day. The defenders are stretched thin. Ammunition is so scarce that commanders order soldiers to ration every bullet. Some units rely on captured enemy weapons, scavenging whatever rounds are left in abandoned vehicles. Night after night, Ukrainian drone teams launch desperate sorties, seeking to disrupt Russian artillery positions or spot new avenues for supply convoys. Away from the front lines, the city's civilians endure unimaginable hardship. Families huddle in basements, children clutching stuffed animals as explosions shake the ceiling. Food is scarce, loaves of bread are rationed, and canned goods become treasures to be traded or hoarded. Medical supplies are so limited that even basic painkillers are precious. For many, simply venturing above ground is a risk they cannot take. Humanitarian aid, the lifeline for so many besieged cities in the past, is a distant promise in Pokrovsk. Convoys are routinely shelled or forced to turn back. International organizations plead for access, but few vehicles make it through. The stories are harrowing. An ambulance destroyed by artillery as it tried to reach a maternity ward. A Red Cross truck abandoned on the edge of the city, its supplies looted by desperate residents. Ukraine's high command maintains that the situation is, in their words, under control. But the reality on the ground is far grimmer. Soldiers, exhausted and undersupplied, have taken to scavenging rations. In one frontline position, a medic describes turning away the wounded for lack of bandages. The city's mayor broadcasts nightly messages urging resilience, but the tone grows more somber with each passing day. For those who wish to flee, escape is almost impossible. Humanitarian corridors, announced with hopeful fanfare, are quickly targeted by artillery or blocked by advancing troops. Some families try to slip out under cover of night, risking everything for a chance at safety. Most remain trapped, clinging to rumors of a relief column or the hope that diplomacy will bring a ceasefire. The consequences of losing Pokrovsk could not be higher. If the city falls, the Eastern Front may unravel, forcing Ukrainian forces into a hasty, disorganized retreat. This would risk not just military defeat, but the collapse of Ukraine's defensive strategy in the entire Donbass region. Historical precedent suggests that such a breakthrough can change the entire momentum of a war. Consider the German breakthrough at Sedan in 1940, which opened the path to Paris in just days. In war, sometimes one city's fall can decide the fate of a nation. But Pokrovsk is not only a test of military strength, it is a test of will, of logistics, of the ability to adapt and endure under siege. In the next 48 hours, every decision made, by generals, soldiers, and civilians, will echo far beyond the city's battered streets. Should Russian forces capture Pokrovsk, Ukraine's last major bulwark in Donetsk would be lost. The front would shift westward, opening new corridors toward Dnipro and, in the most dire scenario, threatening the approaches to Kyiv itself. The psychological blow would be immense. Russian commanders, emboldened by victory, might launch fresh offensives, forcing further Ukrainian withdrawals and redrawing the conflict's map overnight. Western analysts warn that such a loss could trigger a dangerous escalation. The fall of Pokrovsk might convince some allies that Ukraine's defeat is inevitable, weakening international support. Others might respond by increasing covert aid, sending more advanced weapons, intelligence, and financial support. The unity of the Western alliance, already strained by debates over sanctions and support, would be put to the ultimate test. For Pokrovsk's civilians, tens of thousands who remain, the humanitarian crisis would deepen. Already, hospitals are on the verge of collapse, with doctors forced to choose who receives care and who must wait. Food and water supplies are critically low. Each new bombardment risks mass casualties and the spread of disease. If the siege drags on, the city could face the kind of attritional warfare seen in Aleppo or Mariupol, weeks or months of grinding, street-by-street fighting, with little hope for relief. And the consequences will not end in Ukraine. As the conflict threatens vital pipelines, energy prices could spike, with ripple effects felt in every country dependent on Ukrainian or Russian exports. Supply chains, already frayed by years of pandemic and war, could buckle under new pressure. The threat of escalation, whether through miscalculation or deliberate action, could draw in outside powers, risking a wider war that no one wants. Diplomatic tensions are already running high. NATO capitals debate how far to go in supporting Ukraine, with some advocating for direct military intervention and others warning of the dangers of escalation. In the shadows, covert aid flows, arms, intelligence, cash, keep the Ukrainian war effort afloat. Solidarity is under strain, and the agony of Pokrovsk has become a crucible for the alliance itself. Each hour of hesitation magnifies the suffering inside Pokrovsk. Every missed convoy, every delayed decision, deepens the crisis and raises the risk of a wider conflagration. History offers many examples of the dangers of delay. Think of Srebrenica in 1995, where international inaction led to tragedy. The lesson is clear. The world cannot afford to look away from Pokrovsk or to repeat the mistakes of the past. But behind every statistic, every map, every strategic analysis are the lived experiences of ordinary people. Families separated by bombardment, children going to sleep hungry, medics working without rest, knowing that help may never arrive. Their stories are the true heart of Pokrovsk, the reason why this battle matters, not just to strategists, but to all who value human life. This is not only a fight for territory or for military advantage. It is a race against time, a struggle to keep hope alive in the face of overwhelming odds. Every day the defenders hold out is another day for new aid to arrive, for new defensive lines to be built. Yet every day also brings more suffering, more destruction, and a narrowing window for escape. Modern warfare is won or lost, not just on the front lines, but in the invisible spaces between them. Logistics, intelligence, the collective will of communities under fire, these are as decisive as any weapon. Maps may show shifting borders, but the real contest is for control over supply routes, the speed of information, and the ability to endure relentless pressure. Civilians pay the highest price. Each destroyed supply truck, each missed delivery of food or water, each moment of indecision, these multiply the human cost. As the crisis deepens, the world's response must go beyond sending weapons. Rapid, coordinated humanitarian aid is vital. Sometimes a single truck carrying bread and water can save more lives than a dozen armored vehicles. Medical teams, safe evacuation corridors. These are the difference between hope and despair. Pokrovsk stands as a warning, a mirror reflecting the dangers of hesitation and division. Every wasted hour, every divided effort, deepens the tragedy. If we fail to learn about the limits of brute force, the urgency of logistics, the value of every moment, we risk repeating the same devastating pattern wherever the next crisis emerges. The next 48 hours in Pokrovsk will decide more than the fate of a city. They will test the world's capacity to resist aggression, to protect civilians, and to safeguard the future of Europe itself. The decisions made now will ripple outward, shaping not only the outcome of this war, but the kind of world we leave for the next generation. For viewers everywhere, the lesson is urgent. What happens in Pokrovsk could redraw borders, disrupt energy supplies, and shake the foundations of global security. In war, timing is everything, and sometimes the next 2 days matter more than years of negotiation. To turn away from Pokrovsk is to risk a future shaped by chaos and crisis. A single misstep could spark wider fighting, unleash new waves of refugees, and jolt economies from Berlin to Beijing. Grasping what is at stake is not just a matter of headlines, but of our shared future. No matter where you are, the events in Pokrovsk call us to vigilance, to informed action, and to empathy. Every update is a clue in a much larger story, a story in which every hour, every decision, truly matters. In the coming days, not only soldiers and politicians, but nations, and all of us, will be tested by what happens here. Pokrovsk is no longer just a name on a map. It is a warning, a crossroads, and perhaps our final chance to act before history turns a new and uncertain page. The next 48 hours will decide whether hope survives, here and far beyond. If you have watched this far, you understand the depth of the crisis and the stakes for all of us. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and remember, sometimes the fate of millions can hinge on a single city, and the world we build tomorrow is shaped by what we choose to do today.